You are now listening to Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell, the voice for the people. Join Richie alongside co-host property damage attorney Hans Kennon as they bring light to the taboo world of big insurance companies, exposing their tactics and fighting for justice. Hear stories from contractors across the state. Contractor Talk, here to protect homeowners and uncover the truth.
All right, welcome to the show, Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell, every Monday night, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. on this fine radio dial right here, 94.9 FM, 950 on the AM dial, The Answer. We do this locally every Monday night here, so if you're listening locally and you happen to be passing through, listening to us on the old radio, how they'll say, how the youngins will be like, what? What do you mean you're on the radio? What does that mean? They're like, you know, the little dials in your car radio. Most of them don't listen to that anymore. They stream, and we do have an answer for you. We stream every one of our shows. You can check us out whether you're a YouTuber. We have a YouTube page where you can actually check out Hans' Dapper Suit of the Week every week, and no week at any given time where you see the exact same setup right here on Hans Kennon. So right there is one reason, if out of many, to go to our website and or check us out on our YouTube page, like us, subscribe us, check out every show. And we guarantee you a show every week. Apparently, unless there's like a holiday or something like that, we always get gypped because Mondays are a lot of the holidays. So yeah, we do get gypped there, Hans. But we do bring a new show to you, a new exciting guest and such. And as a matter of fact, I see Hans over here just waiting, ready to go with this article. So we definitely have a topic for you tonight. We have a great guest for you tonight. So just a great show altogether. We're sponsored by the Restoration Association of Florida. So check us out there, raflorida.org. And we'll catch up here with Hans. What's going on, Hans?
Oh, lots of things. Keeping an eye on the weather as we have to do this time of year.
I see that there is a red blob out there.
There's a red blob. We're not exactly sure what the red blob is going to become, if anything. But as of last, it looks a little north. I'm not going to lie to you. It looks a little north right now.
It's already curving out to the northeast side.
A little bit. Let's see. We got a little bit of. You can see a little bit.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. You never know. It's hard to say. There was one the other day that was out there that it was huge, and then next morning it was gone.
Right.
So it certainly has not yet had any real form to it yet.
Right, we've officially hit over the crest or over the halfway mark of our storm season, so the chances are dwindling that we'll have a storm hit this year, although we've seen storms come in late. Look at last year. Was it Milton that came in second?
Milton was October 9, so another 3 weeks from now. Another thing, too, is there was a revision to the hurricane schedule by the National Hurricane Center.
Was it?
They revised it downward, and everyone's like, well, they went from 6 to 9, from 7 to 10. And I'm like, I think that's just one. So there was a reduction of one from the prediction because there hasn't really been any yet. But that was the big news yesterday was that the reduction of one.
Right. Well, it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of news leading up to, I guess, we have an early session, and like I said,
January.
Right. Like to report on that where we're coming up to session, but it really starts a few months beforehand. So you'll see committee meetings happening already by, I would say, mid to late October. You're going to have things already being brought up that we're going to start to hear inklings of. And sometimes you'll see some of the hands played early. We'll see what law changes may be the most important. Although we saw that hopefully the mining bill comes back. I don't know I don't have no idea what the phosphate mining bill included, but apparently it was super important to the Senate. So hopefully they get that back out there for the miners.
Well, I mean, I hate. Going to West Virginia again all of a sudden. I was going to bring a canary to the coal mine with the Senate meeting. But one thing about the lack of a hurricane, not just from any other perspective, but in the absence of any weather this year, it tends to make people be complacent, and the legislature becomes complacent when people aren't calling them on the phone. So if there's no storm for people to be abused by the insurer, they're not going to be calling their congressman, their local legislator, and saying, hey, it's not going well. People go, maybe everything's fine. Then another year goes by. So from a legislative perspective, the storm's important simply because we know what the insurers are going to do. They're not going to do the right thing, and that helps reinforce yet another run to get some of the changes made to consumers back into law.
Well, and I hope we start to see the articles recirculate again about how bad the insurance companies really are. I mean, we saw one article that said 14 insurance companies topped over 50% a declination rate on both of those two storms, with Helene and Milton both together. And then another article came out separately about how bad Citizens is at topping all of those lists at 77% of all claims filed, and they own 1/6 of the market approximately. So it's like, what in the world is going on? So you have, and then all of the top 10 insurers own the rest of the major market, right? And then the rest of the scraps thereof. So you're saying that, and people's distrust was at 76%, and then you had all the way down to your snake farms and
right.
your all snakes and stuff like that. You're not in good hands, obviously, but especially after a storm with the environment we have in the state of Florida. And so we have a guest here tonight that is I was going to say definitely knows what we're talking about has the same frustrations here as a predominant lawyer here in the I was going to say the Central Florida area. But Brooke, what's going on? How are you?
Hey, I'm great. Great to be back.
Yeah, great to have you. What's going on with you? How are things?
It has been an interesting year. I have been dealing with all the same issues that you guys have been talking about. The frustrations with the new legislation, a lot of new policy provisions that are really limiting the coverage that insureds have dramatically. In some sense, it's like, what are we even paying for? Because there's just so many exclusions and caps and limitations in the insurance
and no
policy.
Exchange for that on the policy premium. You would think if you lost coverage, you would also see that in your rate. But we see that not to be true, as well as, like you're saying, erosion of your what you have in your policy. And we still see the rates going up and up. And we talk about this a lot on the show. And with these sweeping law changes in 2022 and then 2023, all we've seen after that is more slow walking of claims, because at the worst day, at the insurance company's worst day, they pay what they should have paid 2 years prior, 3 years prior, whenever it was. Mm-hmm. And it's shameful to think that there's no penalty. There's nothing that you can do, especially Citizens, because they're immune to bad faith. Right. But they made it much more difficult in the state of Florida to run bad faith. It has to be separate. Nobody wants to wait another several years after they finally made a conclusion of their claim. A lot of times they need the money to put their roof on, put themselves back to pre-loss condition. Right. And so what we're seeing is what's happening in the marketplace is the exact opposite. If we want to see real policy improvement, we would want to see that with putting the homeowners first, putting them back as fast as we can after a loss. And we're seeing the exact opposite, and the rate's still going up. Yeah. It's just beyond me for that fact. And are the legislators going to do anything this year about it, with the governor standing over them? We all know that he was bought out by the insurance lobby, so he's not going to allow anything to happen. In his last year with zero power left, is he going to sign it? Hopefully. I mean, we saw what Danny Perez was doing as the Speaker of the House, really pushing for at least some sort of fair, even a zone here where you have at least what they call it, the loser pays. They're bringing back attorney's fees to at least level out the playing field, to where it does tax the insurance company for slow walking, wrongfully denying a claim, is saying, hey, if you were found to be wrong, then you have to pay attorney's fees. And so going away from what they called the one-way attorney fee statute in 627-428, which we all know that wasn't the case, but they presented this as, hey, loser pays, and that makes sense. And it made sense to everybody except for the governor, who, what we saw then, made his word come down to the ex president of the Senate, Pasadomo, who was the chair for the Rules Committee, who says it's not going to happen. We're not going to pass this through my committee. So it never moved in the Senate. Right. And you saw that bill go all the way through in the House, even presented back over to the Senate and said, here, sign this. And they still wouldn't do it, even when they put it into that phosphate mining bill that was so important to the Senate. And so they killed that bill too, because they didn't want to accept the attorney's fees. What was so bad about attorney's fees, giving that back, a loser pays kind of situation? What is so bad about presenting that up, right? I mean, it was only a help to the consumer. And and it was just a promise made by our governor, who won by only a few hundred votes when he initially ran, I believe in 2018, and the FJA raised $3.5 million, whatever it was, raised a bunch of money for Mayor Gillum, the mayor of Tallahassee at the time, and he almost won. I mean, and I remember hearing from the FJA as well as too, is like, well, this is in our better benefit, because here we go, Ron DeSantis, nobody knows who he is, nobody knows what he's about, and so because of that uncertainty, they put their money and their time behind Mayor Gillum, and that backfired six years later. Because what did when I had that one chance to talk to Governor DeSantis on the phone, it was very quick, and but I did have to hire his ex-chief of staff, Adrian, and just to get this guy on the phone, and it was basically a little too late, right? And that he is getting back at the trial bar, and that's what you get basically, and he didn't care what that meant to homeowners, what that meant to business owners. I mean, they literally put my business and many other businesses in jeopardy or out of business that worked in the way, right? I mean,
all of us.
Yeah. I mean, so many of us had to do something different, right? I mean, instead of what they're passionate about, in with this property claims, and we were just given the short end of the stick. I mean, we were given wrong information. 79% of all of the claims litigation exists here in Florida, and only this many percentage, and we were even up there running around saying, this is bad information. What about all the storms in New York? What about all the pipe claims in Texas? You didn't count any of those. You're just counting wind claims in certain areas, not even New York, right? And nobody cared about North Dakota or whatever, but there are people that actually live there. But it's just so frustrating. And my question is any of this article or any of these articles, any of this truth, any of these stories now are going to be told in the current legislation, and any of this going to actually amount to a bill that both sides can agree on to put policyholders first, and I don't know what to say about that. It's just heartening.
I agree wholeheartedly, and I'm not holding on to too much hope at this juncture. I was pleasantly surprised to see that the bill made it as far as it did last legislative session. I was shocked, actually, that it made it that far. But then after it failed, I wondered if the House knew that the Senate was going to vote it down, and so they put it out there as a show of good faith, but did they really intend for it to be passed, or were they just trying to appease the constituents, knowing that it wouldn't make it past the Senate? I don't know. I know my business has been dramatically affected by the new laws. I know that my clients have been dramatically affected, and I have a lot of hard conversations every day with clients to say, I'm sorry that this is the position that the Florida legislature has put you in, but there's only so much I can do as an attorney when you don't have a right to attorney's fees. There's only so much money I can justify that a roof costs. And out of that roof money, unfortunately, has to go towards your attorney's fees. If there's a public adjuster, they get paid a percentage, and then the homeowner is kind of left with what's left over. And beyond that, the Florida Office of Insurance Regulation is just permitting these exclusions that are making it even worse. One example that comes to mind is the 1% matching limitation, which I wholeheartedly believe that insureds have no idea that that's what they're signing up for. Because if they understood that their $300,000 policy actually means that they only get $3,000 worth of coverage if something needs to match, they would have a fit and never sign up for a policy like that. But it's not something that is in big, bold letters. It's not something that's brought to their attention. And it's just thrown in there until they have a claim. And then they're like, and
then it comes to light that
you're capped at
your cabinets are going to be mismatched now. If you have a dishwasher leak, now the best day is going to be you replace your bottoms, and you get $3,000 to reface your uppers to make it look like the lowers.
Exactly. So even if you have $1 million worth of coverage, you're going to get $10,000 to replace your whole kitchen if every single cabinet isn't damaged.
Right, from the initial peril, right? So it's unfortunate. And then you'll hear adjusters taking that a little bit too further, because I'll hear from the public adjusters complaining about them being stuck to 1% on, say, flooring or other things that may be continuous, which is a whole different argument, especially interlocking flooring. I guess if you're looking at a floor that is glued down and they're fragmented, like each piece is put there and is glued straight to the floor, I think you have an argument to say, okay, you can replace what was damaged and then take the 1% to sand and match the remaining, right? But interlocking floor, there's no way to end anywhere. Right. Mm-hmm. And so you have to go until it's continuous and until it stops. Right. Until you hit a wall, you hit thresholds and that kind of stuff. And so, but people get tripped up and even put that towards, like, say, painting in the room or baseboards and things like that. You're like, what do you mean? Oh no, we're only going to fix this wall and paint that wall. But no, you have to paint the wall, and you have to be continuous all the way through. It's not just a 1% for painting and those other substrates as well too. Biggest where they got you is the cabinet situation. Your lowers get wet, you have 1% to match the tops. And I get that. It's totally separated, right? Even though I don't get that. I think you're shorting somebody that has an expensive kitchen, right? I mean, you almost have to have supplemental insurance now on your cabinets, because that's where people spend the most money is definitely kitchens and bathrooms. And so to not have that protection, like you said, it's just scary. It rolled out in Florida Peninsula, and then you started seeing other policies roll out with this. So I would say
there's Frontline, there's a lot.
Oh yeah, I would say consumers, be vigilant about that. We talk about this a lot when you're looking on the show. When you're looking at your policy, don't just look at your exclusions. Now you want to look at limitations and caps as well as your exclusions. I
think a couple of things come up. One of which I always have this vision of someone back at home office going, hey, do you guys realize we pay for 100% of matching? And someone goes, really? And they go, how about we go, Bobby, what do you think? Bobby goes, oh, how about 50%? Nice, Bobby. That's forward thinking.
Right.
We'll pay for half the matching. Someone else goes, how about 10%? People go, whoa, that's a bold move, 10%. Some guy goes, how about make it 1%, see what happens?
Yeah.
And that guy becomes vice president. But I really do. I just envision they sit around and just have these kind of things and just goes, what can we cut more? What else can we take from the insured that otherwise you think is relatively sacred, like would be relatively, safe from that type of thing? And obviously they call politics for a reason, right? Whenever we say, don't engage in politics, it's never a positive. So it's the same kind of thing when you talk about whether they pass the bill just for political capital, knowing it would never get passed. You got to stop and you got to go, well, that is, because Perez would get a good bump from all of us on our side of the fence. We're all appreciative of his effort, and he may in his own head know he's never going to make it, man. But it'll make me look good. And he actually just met with President Trump about running for Attorney General of Florida, because the guy they put in, Wertheimer, whatever his name is, was appointed by the governor. So they're actually he went to the White House, and Trump recommended him that he run for AG of Florida.
Interesting.
Which is interesting, given that he's also a plaintiff's lawyer out of Miami, which is also, so it's just interesting when you watch these things unfold. There's all these unintended things that occur, or things that are intended that none of us know. Like, are they trying to fake pass a bill that they know will never get any traction? Is this just political grandstanding to become an AG so then he can become governor next? It's easier to make that move, or all these things. And unfortunately, what we always find, those of us in the business we are in, always find the consumer always comes last and at the greatest expense.
Right. Isn't that unfortunate? I was going to bring up the fact that Florida statute actually states you get matching under the HO3 policy. So How do you have a policy that conflicts with Florida statute? That's my question.
It doesn't conflict, they say. They're still doing it, just at a limited level. I mean, that's what. And what's interesting about 66.9744, right? That's right. The statute is one part says shall and one part says may, and it says that they shall consider and may pay, or there's a shall and a may. And I remember always arguing the shall sentence, and opposing counsel are arguing the may sentence, going, no, they shall consider it, but they may pay it, which means they don't have to actually pay it at all. And I was
but they have to think about it. They just consider it. How about 1%?
How about 1%?
There we go.
I remember I was telling you in mediation, when I have mediations with citizens, one of the adjusters always tells my client how much coverage they have. Sir, you have $350,000 worth of coverage. Yeah, but he can't get to it.
$500 offer is what you get from citizens at mediation.
Place burns to the ground. Maybe you see that money. Maybe they write you a check for the full amount of policy. But I just love the guy would always say, this is how much coverage you have. And I'm like, how did he get to it? How can he possibly get to that amount of money? Well, what set of circumstances allows them to do that? Oh, the house burns to the ground. Valued policy law. That's it. Otherwise, there's a limitation. There's an exclusion. There's something at every level that limits what they can get back,
Right. And I mean, and you saw what happened when, American Disintegrity came out with that policy change where they just on a renewal, it was in 2022, I think it was April, they were just going to renew everybody with this binding arbitration language. Mm-hmm. And my camp got so upset about this, we went ahead and filed suit on it. And then we had other carriers jump in. And one of them was Heritage, and we were able to I was able to reach out to Ernie over at Heritage and say, hey man, like, what are you doing? What's going on?
Yeah.
Just same way as American Disintegrity, we're not able to do this, to deny access to the court systems to the home, for homeowners. And then you saw about the very next year, while our litigation is cooking, and while Heritage decided to back down because of the litigation, as soon as they put their hat in the ring, we opened the door to them. We added them to the lawsuit, and they went ahead and withdrew their policy request to add this to their to their automatic renewals. So we actually were able to pause that. Just unfortunately, Bob Richie, which I like to just slam him on LinkedIn all the time, and it's funny. So definitely don't like the other guy, this guy's business practice for sure. But he took, I don't know, maybe it's slick, I don't know, I still don't like it either way. But the rumblings are all of his employees came up with $1,000 each, right?
Political contribution.
Put it all together to go buy, and this was like 1 year after, and all of a sudden DeSantis gets $1 million from Bob Richie and all of his employees, which then he goes back and bonuses everybody the $1,000. Right? You're not supposed to do that, but of course it's just like whatever you need to do to give money to the governor, right? And so and then he codifies it in the very next year in a bill. So he was like, yeah, sure, you can do that. Boom, rubber stamps it.
Right.
I'm like, are you kidding me? That was like the start of like seeing the downfall, right? It was like that was the 2022 regular session, and at the end of that, if you remember, I think it was Sprouse that was the Speaker of the House, and he wasn't having it for like major change.
Right.
It literally made some change, and then as soon as they switched chairs, and then the new guys got into there, then in November, then boom, there was 2 more special sessions, and then 2023, then you had the death nail bill, House Bill 837, if I remember right. So, but it's just been a downfall since then. Litigation still exists. It's that most people are making that determination now where they're looking at the numbers and they're saying, is the juice worth the squeeze? I mean, if you have a small claim, I mean, and it might not be small to most people, $10,000, $20,000 to fix your roof, and you spend most of that on litigation, what's it worth, to you at the end of it, besides a big headache? And so that's unfortunate. And so we'll hope, and hope is never a strategy, but we hope to see that these articles and this media gets back out there, and time for the legislators to really make a hard look at this and really pressure the governor, who seemingly doesn't have much power left now. Where else does he have to go here in the state of Florida? But But how much power does he have to still stand this back, right? I mean, to withhold what we think is going to happen, or what we know that homeowners are going to need, which is at least the power to have attorney's fees back. So, all right. Anyways, we'll give some thanks to our sponsors. We'll be right back on the show. Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell. All right. And we're back live on Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell every Monday night right here, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m., 94.9 FM, 950 on the AM dial. If you miss us here, you're just passing through and you want to hear the whole show, check us out in a few days. We'll be live on Spotify, iTunes, anywhere you like to stream. You can check us out on YouTube. Like us, subscribe us there. Check out every show. You can see the video and the audio portion there. And one in our new age or new era here of technology, where we can be everywhere you like to stream, as cheesy as that is. But at least we've got every market covered for you. I'm not a YouTuber. I guess that's why I laugh about that. I miss that generation where I go to YouTube to look for everything. I guess unless it's like step-by-step instructions of how to put something together, but then I get frustrated anyways and just call somebody. But I'm just not that guy. But more or less like maybe the Spotify kind of guy. If I'm on a long trip, it's like, boom, plug that in. So anyways, that's my whole take on where you should go. It's just we're just that volatile, or versatile. We're everywhere. I like that.
We are everywhere. I'm glad we're not too volatile. Well, we're not necessarily
not too
volatile. Volatile.
I guess volatile sometimes, but it's just more passion, I would say, more than volatile.
Okay, let's go. I think we go with that instead. But it is good that we are available on many platforms.
That's right. And many people do chime in and listen to our show every week here live locally in the Central Florida area. So I appreciate you guys listening. So Brooke, we were talking about and just offline, we were talking more about policyholder stuff and frustrations. And one of them is in this new, and we're talking about policies that now will limit outside of just here are exclusions. Everybody looks in your policy. Okay, what are my exclusions? Okay, we exclude this, we exclude sinkholes and this, blah, blah, blah. But now people are not realizing that there are limitations and caps, and Citizens being one of them. It used to be the insurer of last resort. It used to be difficult to get Citizens. Like, you had to get 3 no's from insurance companies. Nobody wanted to take you, but Citizens would. But now they're trying to corner the market just so they can resell them and take out policies to other pop-up insurance companies that they can control. But the policies they're spitting out are crazy. Many of them with just $10,000 limitations. Let's say you have a $700,000 house, because I think it splits at $750,000 or whatever. Anyways, where you get a different policy. But let's say you have this much coverage. They're going to say, well, you have $10,000 to use whoever you want to if you have a water loss, an incident, mold, anything like that, or we'll let. Or you get full amount if you let one of our preferred pretenders come in here, they're part of our quote unquote network of folks, then which you don't have any control of or whatever, into your home with no references, and they usually don't have a Better Business Bureau or even Google page because it's just ruined. And so, but they want you to have these people in their home without any felony background checks, nothing like that, to come and do all the work that Citizens then says, here, these are what we're giving you, right? Or here's $10,000 out of your max policy for this, which I think is wrong. But then on top of that, now if you do have a dispute against your insurer, namely Citizens, now they're invoking their right to DOA, which is like some Department of Administrative Hearing, where they take this judge from somewhere else that doesn't know anything about property and says, here, I want you to be the hearing administrator here of these, and which both parties must come to the table here, bringing their own experts, expending their own cost to present to the judge, where then they can determine who wins. And then and Brooke, I'll let you tell us about this story recently where you had one of your clients in one of these hearings.
Sure. So the first issue with DOA is that you can't dismiss. So if Citizens invokes their right to DOA, you can't withdraw from it. And I have a colleague attorney who's run statistics on what the outcomes have been from these DOA hearings. And at the time he did that research, 95% of the rulings were coming in favor of Citizens. And part of that reason was because some policyholders didn't like those stats, and so they said, we just want to withdraw our claim, and they weren't allowed to. So the DOA hearing officers determined that was a win for Citizens, And because it was a win for Citizens, that meant that that Citizens was entitled to be repaid by the homeowner for its attorney's fees. So judgments were being entered for thousands of dollars against homeowners to pay for Citizens' attorney's fees when the homeowner just said, I wanted to walk away. I didn't want to go to a hearing. I was just willing to move on. So that is the backdrop with which people are looking at these DOA hearings, is that statistically 95% of them are going in Citizens' favor with huge consequences to the insured. So the insured is just scared away from being able to pursue its rights because the outcomes are just they're just so biased in favor of Citizens. So I have a friend, attorney, who took those odds and went all the way to the DOA hearing and won. He was one of the few who won the hearing. However, it was only a $20,000 award because the policy had $10,000 caps for $10,000 for mold and $10,000 for water. So you would expect that to be a win, but it cost him $7,000 in costs to get to that result. He had to hire experts, etc. That cost $7,000. So that cuts down the win to $13,000. Then you take off attorney's fees, you take off public adjuster fees, and now the homeowner is getting pennies on what they should have received. So this attorney goes and asks the DOA hearing officer to award it its costs in the same way that they awarded Citizens in all those wins that were really just dismissals. In the same way that they awarded all those costs to Citizens, they asked to be awarded the $7,000 of costs, not even the attorney's fees, just the costs. And the result was the DOA hearing officer denied the costs, and his rationale, the judge's rationale, was that it was within his discretion to say no. So
is that an appealable order?
I don't think it is. I
mean, DOA, we're talking about DOA. DOA is an administrative law judge, which is not a court.
Right.
And you go to the courthouse, there's no administrative law judges there. You go to the work comp courthouse, which is the next type of law. They're all administrative law judges, but all they do is comp. So what happened was everyone in DOA is going in front of a judge in Tallahassee, appointed typically by Governor DeSantis, to hear all these cases on behalf of Citizens on an administrative law program put together by Ricky Polson, who was the former Florida Supreme Court justice, who, when he got hired as chief legal officer over at Citizens, came up with this plan. Now, the primary way they get those fees and costs is through what's called a proposal for settlement, which is not allowed to be used in non-court proceedings. However, the year before, basically they snuck in, because nobody read it, and honestly, I didn't read it either, a one-liner that said, even though this statute doesn't apply to Division of Administrative Hearings, it will from now on. Because when I got my first DOA case, I wrote a motion to strike the PFS, because honestly, I didn't know that they passed this thing. No one I knew they passed this thing. And I got to go to Ricky Polston going, they passed this thing. And I'd called like 5 guys, because this was all new stuff. And it was like a one-liner in like the bottom of this bill, like the actual like fine print type thing that said, we know we don't normally allow this, and it's not a civil action for damages, but in this case, we'll let you guys do it.
Right.
And that was it. And because I originally said, hey, you know what? Worst comes to worst, no fees, no costs. We go run some through. We see what happens. We get it done quick. See what the temperature is. Then a proposal for settlement started coming up, and I told my clients, I said, from now on, only way to get out is to accept the proposal,
which is usually $500.
Right, which is $500. The only way out, because otherwise, what happens is when DOA and when Citizens invokes DOA, they make you the plaintiff. Like they make you the insured the plaintiff. You're just going, hi, can we get together and do a mediation? They make you the plaintiff. They put all these burdens on you, but you can't dismiss the case. I mean, it's
like they trap you.
Yes.
Yes, it is a trap. And when you talk about kangaroo courts, you ever hear that term before? Mm-hmm. This is a kangaroo court, man. This is just they set them up and knock them down, and you're never going to win.
It's like Judge Judy. Is that the
And everything is
I'd love
expedited.
Judge Judy. I'd be in front of Judge Judy every day before I'd be in front of him.
100%.
Exactly, yeah. When any of those judge shows, I'll take any judge show over the ALJ in Tallahassee.
Yes. And everything is so expedited. In regular court, it'll be a year or so at the earliest before you get to your trial. In DOA, it's like 6 weeks. So you are pressed to have to hire all your experts up front. So you don't even have the ability to get your expert reports before you've got to respond to this proposal for settlement for $500. So the clock is ticking on that proposal, and you're also having to pay these litigation expenses that you don't know if you're going to ever collect those in the end. And so it's just horrible on so many fronts, and is really it's just baffling to me that this is the state of our justice system right now.
Right. Especially as it relates to this property insurance crisis that, and it was a self-made crisis by the insurance company taken too far. And so at what point will the pendulum swing back, and in which way is that going to happen? And so we talk about this a lot, and we hope that the pendulum will swing sooner than later. We just don't see it this next year coming up with the governor that we have in place, and I think that's going to be what the next governor that's going to be running is going to be holding. That's one of the biggest pain points that Floridians have right now, is the ever rising cost of insurance, how much it costs just to live here, and that's a big part of it. Now, with DOA, though, I know that there are two things going on: a class action suit against it being constitutional, but also I think there is an appeal that placed a stay, one judge out of, I think, Hillsborough.
Yeah.
And I believe that held up that invocation of DOA by citizens.
Yeah, it extended. My understanding was, the last thing I heard was that it did extend the temporary restraining order relating to that, to allow that to go up on appeal and keep that prohibition against kicking cases to DOA.
So right now, and I hear lawyers are banking these claims just in case it goes back, and then you have to be into DOA. So it's almost like, don't file that 10-day demand letter to get trapped.
Right.
Or should you put foot to the gas pedal and just start NOIing and start suing now and getting them closed out prior to that ruling, right? I mean, strategy.
You can't. No. At best it'll get stayed.
Yeah.
At worst, they'll just. I mean, I have friends who are telling me they're still getting kicked to DOA, and DOA hearing officers are refusing to stay.
That's crazy. All right, we'll take a quick break, give some things to our sponsors. We'll be right back. All right, we're back live on Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell. Thanks for hanging out through that short break. Check us out on Spotify, iTunes, anywhere you like to stream, and of course, YouTube. Find every episode there live with both video and audio, and we are supported by the Restoration Association of Florida, raflorida.org. Always great conversation here today. We're just chopping it up. What's better than conversation with one lawyer? Two lawyers. So right here on this show, just kind of chopping it up for policyholders here. Mostly we were just talking about Citizens Insurance, which has about 1/6 of the HO3 policies here, which are these about 6.5-7 million policies exist for single home residents, which require these policies. We call them the full coverage policies, and the HO3 policies that folks get when they say, am I covered? Do I have full coverage? You have your renter's policies. You have your other rental policies outside of your DP3 policies, like if you were renting or if you own multiple homes, such like that. And then you have your apartment type of rentals. You have all these different types of insurance. So just talking about your HO3 single-family resident policies, about 6.5-7 million policies exist. And at one point, Citizens was up to, a few years back, about 1.3 million policies. I think they're down to about 1 million or just under, due to their takeout policies that they're giving to Mangroves or some of these other pop-up insurance companies. I mean, I think Mangrove just started January of 2025. I mean, it just started, and they have hundreds of thousands of policies issued by Citizens. So their policies are just as horrible as Citizens because they came from them. But they talk about this managed care stuff where you think you have a full coverage policy and you thinking you are in control of this. where you have control of who you have in your home to provide services. And unfortunately, you don't under these policies. They only give $10,000, and like you said, Brooke, and one of them is like $10,000 for water, $10,000 for mold, and that's all they were given in this particular policy. And we see these policies everywhere, and it's like, what am I really signing up for? It's not full coverage, especially when they say, oh, you have $350,000 worth of coverage, but really you only have access to 20. And so let's be real here. What is that value then? What should I have been paying then? Are you giving me a refund on my premium if I only have access to 20? All of these questions exist, and it makes it difficult for us to even shop for insurance now. And what the law changes were, and you see some articles pop up every now and then, they say, oh, new carriers are flooding the Florida market and such like that. And truth be told, if you go to the OIR website, Office of Insurance Regulation, you can see how many registered insurance companies are there. And there are 500-600 each for property and for auto. And so it's like there's so many companies that already existed prior to. We say this all the time. It's like from AAA to like AIG and like Allstate and all these others, and you get into bankers and you're like, wow, man, there's a big list already, and you're just in the A's and the B's and the C's and the Citizens of the world, and you're like, man, there are really a lot of insurance companies that exist here. And so that fake crisis existed so we can continue to spike the premiums, right? So we can tell or have a reason why these law changes were made, right? Why we had to put these quote unquote protections in place to ensure that these insurers stay here in the state of Florida, so we're not left being with only a couple providers here, and that makes no room for competition and keeps the premiums super high. And every year we hope that there are some, and I love the word hope only because it's just that's all it is right now. But we see those two words together in any bill, and that's premium reduction. And at no point have we seen those two words exist in any even proposed bill that didn't make the distance here. So, but we continue to be here to say this, but we also say stay vigilant. There are new policies out. If you do go to the Office of Insurance Regulation, you can plug in your address via your zip code. You can click on property. You can see what insurers exist in that area and that will write for that area. And I say shop insurance agencies, shop insurance companies. Some agents only have up to maybe 5 or 10 carriers that they sell for, and you want to shop those agencies because there are hundreds and hundreds of carriers out there. You'll find the right one. I made a switch, paying $6,000 a year to $3,000 a year. I switched over to Loggerhead. I had no idea who they were. It was.
I think they're the turtle in Finding Nemo.
It really was. And it was AAA. They split, and one of the guys went over there to Tampa, started a new insurance company, and here we go. So there is competition that exists, and so I say shop those. The first thing I was looking for within there, what's covered, and then of course, what are the biggest things? What is not covered? What are your exclusions? What are your caps? What are your limitations? Yeah. Right? You want to stay away from the $5,000 caps, the $10,000 caps for water, those types of things. When you have a loss or major disaster, majority of the time things are wet. And so you have water damage. You want to make sure you have more than $10,000 for water damage. You want to make sure you're covered. You don't have a sewer backup cap. You don't have a wind cap or non-existence of wind, which we've seen some policies actually sell that doesn't have wind coverage. It's crazy. We're in the state of Florida. Let's be real. That's why we have insurance. And so just be vigilant and use your resources. Check things out. We're asked all the time, and I know Hans usually answers this when they say, what insurance companies are good? Maybe this may be the same for you, Brooke. And Hans' canned answer is, well, whatever company I don't sue the most. So he
the ones we never see.
Right. Right. Like Farmer. I used to really like Farmer. They used to insure my house. Yeah. I liked Farmers. They seemed fair. They took care of stuff. And then they left, which I thought was a shame. So they were, everyone in my office when I worked at Morgan & Morgan, everyone had Farmers on my floor because everyone said, hey, they come to me and go, hey, who's a good homeowner insurer? I say, hey, try Farmers. They come back and they go, it says Trucker Exchange. I'm like, it's fine. Don't worry about it. It'll be good. So half of my floor, and my friend of mine's kid was our agent for Farmers. So he was like, hey, I got all these policies from Hans's office. So they were my favorite at that time. I know. Whenever Richie talks about, because he calls American, what do you call them?
Disintegrity.
I like calling them American dysentery. I think that's a little funny. But actually, They used to be very, 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 very difficult to deal with. They were like in the Avatar, which Brooke will remember, and Richie knows the Avatar years of those guys. American Integrity has been okay as far as resolution goes these days. They used to fight. Now they're willing to sit down, willing to work stuff out. I've had good luck with Slide. It's not the best, but again, as far as from a resolution perspective, I've done okay with them. But it's really hard. It's really hard these days to identify someone because, the reality is you got State Farm. The elder in the room is at 50% of denying claims. I mean, but we do call them Snake Farm and All Snake for a reason, right? I mean, we always call them those things. But I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not even sure who my homeowner is right now. I got to go back and look it up, I think.
And that's tough, right? Because now when you're not thinking about it, it adds that to-do list of a long process of, oh my gosh, I have to start this process, and it renews every year. And now you only have 1 year to file first notice of claim. It used to be 5 years ago was 5 years, and so then it quickly went down to 3 years, and then every year it was talk about chipping it away. And so it was really after Irma in which they wanted to really chomp that down after the 2017 storm, as people were out like all the way up to that very last day and filing claims. But in the same though, many people, time flies by so fast. You think about a year. What was happening this time last year was happening at the beginning of this year, and it just time flies by so fast, and so that's when we used to talk about this a lot. You would want to look at shopping your insurance company based off of, remember it was 2 years. We'd say every 2 years because you had 2 years to file first notice of claim. Mm-hmm. Well, then since the law changed, now you have 1 year to file first notice of claim, and you really want to be vigilant on that because that goes by so fast. Have a contractor come look at your home, get a public adjuster. Most of those folks will do it for no charge. The roofers, the public adjusters will come out, take a look at it, give you an honest opinion of what's going on in your home. Now, take photos, those types of things, and then after a storm does come through, then you have some photos, you have some stuff prior to that you can then take to your claim moving forward. So we always say documentation is key with this, especially when now we're at the halfway point. We're on the downside of the halfway point here in the state of Florida for our storm season. So it still could happen. There's a blob out there in the Atlantic, so never know what that red blob's going to do. But like I said, I do say stay vigilant. I do see that you have an article over here that you might have mentioned already, but is there something you want to bring up on that article?
Well, a little bit. I mean, we only have a few minutes left. I'd rather toss this time to Brooke, chat about her practice and what she's doing.
Sure.
And this will still be good news next week.
It sure would. It sure would. That's a great idea. Brooke, what's going on with you? I know that heavy property, like many of us, pivoted in this industry and maybe adding on new facets of services here. What's going on with you today?
Sure. Well, just building upon what Hans was saying about who the preferred insurance companies are, I think it's an easier question to answer who are the worst than who are the best. But
Right.
I have kind of an unpopular opinion when it comes to who I prefer to work with. When I'm in a room of public adjusters or roofers and I ask them, who do you dislike the most? Hands down, it's always State Farm.
State Farm, yeah.
Always. But for me, I actually like working with State Farm because they have solid policies. They don't have all those crazy exclusions that a lot of these other smaller companies are putting in. In fact, I think that's probably true for ASI, which is the Progressive, and even Castle Key, which is the Allstate. Their policies are better. And even though they do deny a lot of claims on the front end, when it gets to an attorney like myself or Hans, we've had good success with getting those resolved either pre-suit or early in litigation. So don't walk away from those claims. Like, I know that I found out a lot of people were just walking away when they're denied, and especially if it was a $20,000 claim or something that they didn't think was high enough. I've had pretty good success in getting those resolved early enough to still put a decent amount of money in the client's pocket to make some repairs.
Yeah, and that's great that you say that. I mean, and that's encouraging because believe it or not, a staggering low percent of the folks that get denied actually do something about it. We're talking about 10 to 20% of folks that get denied actually do something about it. That's huge. You would think that number would be higher. You think it'd be so many people.
The opposite. It would be literally the opposite.
Yeah.
Right.
And you would think they'd be so outraged that they would be like, we're going to light this on fire. We're going to hire whoever we need. But in fact, it's the opposite. A lot of times they just say, well, I tried, and they don't know that they could, even though there's no fees, you're not paying up front, right? And so, our message to the folks are trying to find a unified front and saying, 70% of something's better than 100% of nothing. So, and like I tell folks, know who you're working with and know what the max out of pocket's going to be. Because you're right. I mean, it's expensive to take this. And unfortunately, the smaller claims, $10,000, $20,000 claims weren't attended to because nobody felt like there was enough meat on the bone.
And something to keep in mind is that with the 1 year time frame now to open or reopen a claim, if you just kind of let it go and don't pursue the claim and you don't reopen that claim in the 1 year when the problem starts to get worse, you can't go back and reopen it. And so if you file a new claim, which is what some people do, the insurance company points back to that original loss and says this is all pre-existing. We have photos back then showing that this problem had started at that point and you didn't fix it. And so your new claim from a new hurricane is going to be much weaker than if you had just continued to pursue that original claim.
And Brooke, how do we get a hold of you?
Thank you for asking. Brooke Boltz. It. Boltz Legal. Boltz Legal is the name of my law firm, boltzlegal.com. There's a contact page there, and I'm on social media all over.
Yes, you are.
Boltz Legal.
That's right.
As well.
Partner on Boltz Legal, boltzlegal.com. Thank you so much for listening. Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell. See you.